here's some science behind how fallacies work. Welcome to Critical Thinking Scan, where we look at how you can think about any faith-challenging message and arrive at a biblical, logical conclusion yourself. I'm Patricia Engler, and today we're going to explore some of the psychology behind why bad arguments can sound persuasive and mislead large numbers of people. By way of a quick recap, remember that bad arguments often involve fallacies or faulty forms of logic and propaganda, which is communication that tries to persuade by appealing to something besides logic. To see how propaganda and fallacies work together, let's look at the way persuasion happens in the brain. Many theories of persuasion look at two different channels the brain uses to make decisions. Different researchers sometimes have different names for these channels, but essentially one channel involves careful, logical reasoning, and the other involves more automatic, intuitive thinking based on cues that don't usually have anything to do with logic, like how something looks or how it makes you feel. So, as you might have guessed, propaganda relies on that automatic channel to help you make snap decisions without using logic. And as we talked about in the video on how to check for propaganda, we tend to make these snap decisions by using heuristics, or mental shortcuts that work like rules of thumb. Heuristics can save us time making everyday decisions, but they can also be misleading. For instance, we use the affect heuristic whenever we make quick decisions or judgments based on our emotions about something, whether or not those judgments are logical. And heuristics are often linked to or give rise to cognitive biases, which are patterns of faulty thinking that most of us end up using without even knowing it. For instance, the confirmation bias refers to humans' tendencies to look for and focus on information that confirms our beliefs and expectations, but to pay less attention to information that contradicts our beliefs and expectations. Like, if a researcher believes that humans evolved from ape-like ancestors, they may focus on finding and reporting similarities between ape and human DNA without paying equal attention to the many differences between ape and human DNA, as you can read more about in the resources linked to this video. And together, heuristics and cognitive biases help explain why propaganda and fallacies are often effective. By exploiting the brain's automatic thinking patterns, propaganda and many types of informal fallacies can sound persuasive without being logical. Let's see an example of how this works, tracking the brain's thinking from heuristic to fallacy. Take the authority heuristic. That's the rule of thumb stating that people who are experts usually know what they're talking about, so it's reasonable to believe what they say. That might work a lot of the time, but even experts can believe the wrong information or have cognitive biases, and they're influenced by their worldview starting points just like everyone else. But because we often use this heuristic, it leads to a cognitive bias called the authority bias, which describes how we're more likely to believe and be influenced by the opinions of authority figures, like experts or professors, regardless of what they're actually saying. This bias explains why propaganda can often use authority figures to make messages sound persuasive. For instance, commercials may show a doctor in a lab coat promoting a product to make it look more legitimate. So someone watching that commercial might use the authority heuristic and bias to conclude, wow, a doctor on TV is saying this, therefore it must be true. When really, reasoning that a message is true only because an authority figure said so is the appeal to authority fallacy. As another example, the affect heuristic I mentioned earlier gives rise to a cognitive bias called the halo effect, where we tend to think that someone who excels in one area, like physical appearance, also excels in other areas like intelligence or morality. So messages can sound more reliable simply because they come from nice-looking people, and forms of propaganda like commercials often exploit this effect, don't they? Even though believing a message based only on the type of person who said it is a genetic fallacy. So being able to recognize how heuristics and cognitive biases work can help you think critically in secular classrooms and cultures, and to avoid falling for persuasive but unbiblical arguments. For more on how to think critically about any faith-challenging message, you can access my other CT scan videos packed with tactics, tips, and tools that helps me as a Christian student at secular university. Thank you for watching. Hey, it's Patricia. just wanting to let you know that if you like these videos, are on board to share the message of biblical authority, and want to give, you're welcome to help Answers in Genesis produce more content like this and equip more people to defend their faith by making a one-time donation or becoming a monthly supporter by clicking the link below. Thanks so much.